This video is sponsored by WonderShare DVD Creator, the easy and powerful DVD toolbox to meet all of your DVD needs. Link below in the description. You know me, DJ Slope, the guy that never shuts up about the Mega Drive, the greatest video game system of all time. And although if you asked me to talk to you guys about the Super Nintendo back in the height of the system's popularity, I would have told you where to go. Nowadays, I can't deny that this system is too one of the very best consoles ever released. So many incredible games got released on this system that in quite a few cases actually did it better than Sega's best, but more importantly this little grey beast had a rather impressive selection of exclusives, and today I want to talk about Wild Guns. The sci-fi retro western shooter by developers Natsume. You want a bloody awesome third-party 16-bit exclusive that doesn't get nearly enough praise, then this is the way to go. Intense arcade action that is brutally hard yet very much enjoyable as you attempt to get better and better and better at the game. I'm a big fan of this short series, so I thought it's only fair that I say, join me as we take a look at the Wild Guns complete history, where we'll be looking at the development, the inspiration, its surprise comeback, and of course, the games. Welcome to Slope's Game Room. Wild Guns was one of those games that I randomly loaded up via emulation back in the early noughties when I first decided to look into what the competition was doing, and boy was I pleasantly surprised. Emulation, who remembers that stuff? And don't worry, I do now own a proper copy myself on the Wii U. What? The original? No, of course I don't own the bloody original. Have you seen the prices this legendary game fetches nowadays? Oh well, as I'm sure you will all see, the game is fully worth it. But enough about how good the game eventually become, because, well, I think we're in fact getting a little ahead of ourselves. So, let's go back to the beginning. This is Natsume, a video game developer from Japan responsible for creating quite a lot of video games. Sometimes these titles were completely original, like the one we'll be talking about today, but the vast majority of the development studio revolved around working on licensed titles, and in some cases, working on ports too. Sure, this doesn't sound too exciting, but this was, and in some cases still is, the norm for many development studios and tended to be the perfect way for studios to stay afloat. Shinichi Taniguchi was one of the main guys at the company, and whilst waiting for the next bit of subcontract work to begin, he was instructed by his boss to develop a new game and was only given two conditions. It needed to be made quickly and cheaply. 5 months later, the game was made. Seriously, it was as simple as that. Okay, I'll give a little bit more history on this one. Taniguchi-san was the main game developer as well as being the main guy involved in doing the artwork. Toshiisu Miyabe did the programming, and Hiroyuki Yatsuki was in charge of the game's incredible soundtrack. There was a couple of subcontractors brought in too to help with some of the legwork, but pretty much everything found in this stunning work of art was done by just 3 guys. 3 guys that in fact still work together at the company to this very day on new releases too, such as the 2013 release of Omega 5. But anyway, back to 1994. Yes, 1994. The Sega Saturn and PlayStation were both pretty much out by this point, but as this was such a rush job of a game, the trio decided to do what they knew they could and release a game on a system that they already had so much experience working together on with such titles as Ninja Warriors again.
The Super Famicom was a natural choice. We still thought it was the golden age of the Super Famicom. We didn't really think it was the end of the system at all.
So, should we actually take a look at this bad boy then? Wild Guns is quite a unique game. Sure, there are other games similar to this, like Cable and Sin and Punishment, I suppose. Kind of. Regardless, out of all the games similar to this that I could find, none of them are actually as good as this one, or as punishing as this one. Besides the beautiful graphics and sound, the sheer difficulty may put off quick put up and put down gamers from continuing to play. But guys, please do stick with it. When you start working out how to play the game, it gets so good. Sure, the game is pretty damn short, but constantly trying to see what else you can destroy on the stage, as well as trying to do it without getting hit, which is seriously hard to do, is the real appeal here. Yeah, once you work it out, you may be able to complete it very quickly, but guys, isn't that the norm for the majority of action games from this era? Well, yeah, it is. After all, it's the journey you take along the way that makes it worthwhile, and in this game, that journey is amazing. The crazy mix of futuristic gunslinging robots in a western sort of steampunky world, which was actually inspired by the manga Cobra, blends together so incredibly well and gives this game an insanely unique look. It's surprising how the team was able to pull this off in only 5 months. But they did. Perhaps if they spent longer on the game, they would have added a slightly calmer training mode or something similar to that, because I really do see that that is the game's biggest flaw. If you don't put the effort in, it's very likely that you will not want to play it for very long. The inspiration for the game come from other games such as Dynamite Duke and Blood Brothers. I mean, obviously that was actually a spiritual successor to Cable, so you know, it makes sense. In fact, when you put the games side by side, it's pretty fair to say that a little more than inspiration came from the arcade classic. In fact, when questioned about this in GameSide magazine, which was actually translated from the incredible website Shmupulations, he goes on and explains how he was actually embarrassed looking back at the game, considering how closely the characters' designs resembled each other. Originally, the character's cursor could only be moved up and down using the D-pad, but to move it left and right, you needed to move your character all the way over to the left or all the way over to the right. This proved in testing to be incredibly hard to control, and instead, a slight alteration was made that you can see here, and when you shoot, your character stays stationary, and then you have the ability to either dash out of the way or simply move from that stationary position and to take the cursor along with you. The characters' names were also changed from what? I'm not sure, but the American side of the company strongly suggested Clint and Annie to appeal to a worldwide audience, and that's what we got. Remember the tight line the company had? Well, Annie wears a dress not only to make her character stand out against Clint, but also, well, it's just easier to animate a girl with a dress on than jeans. Oh, and by the way, Taniguchi-san himself was the voice of Clint, recorded in the office's toilets. Seriously guys, in the bog. So yeah, that's Wild Guns, a bloody fantastic little game that is a must for anyone that gets the chance to play it, especially in 2-player. As stated, the vast majority of the episode so far was taken from the translated interview by Shmupulations. A link to that website can be found in the description as always, and at the end of this short interview, when Taniguchi-san was asked to give a final message to all fans who still adore Wild Guns today, he replied,
When I look back at Wild Guns now, all I see are places for improvement. But it was a game we were allowed to make just as we saw fit, so it's very memorable to me because of that. I'm grateful to everyone who played the game then, and to the people who still remember it today.
Well, 22 years later, they got the chance to finally show off the game once again with a remaster. had been 30 years since the company's humble origins, and considering most people saw them as a rather small company with absolutely no original staff members left, this was actually not true at all, and the company decided to prove them all wrong and get the original trio back together to make Reloaded for the PlayStation 4. Although it would eventually also make its way onto Steam, which was a first for the company by the way, and a couple of years later of course, the home of every single bloody port ever made, the Nintendo Switch. It's a good remake, just not a great one. I mean, it looks great, but it always did. You got 2 new characters, which in all fairness is what the original had to begin with, and thankfully both of those characters change up the formula considerably. One which is designed to be a bit easier, aimed at beginners, and the other being incredibly slow, but if used right or in multiplayer with a good second player, can seriously pack a punch. Or you could just play with 4 people at once, although that does indeed get pretty insane. The game is now widescreen, which gives more of an area to maneuver around in, and of course that also means plenty more bad guys too. If you thought the original was hard, this one is gonna shock you. You do have new levels too, although they are weirdly split between both the medium and hard mode, and there is really no way to play them all together. Well, not as far as I can tell anyway. Yeah, it may sound like I'm ragging on the game a little bit, and I suppose in this day and age I am slightly, as we as new age gamers do expect a little bit more from our retro collections, or in this case slight upgrades to games that were released over 20 years ago. But at the same time, we are retro game collectors, and besides the incredible feeling of no doubt owning such a gem of a Super Nintendo title, it's hard to deny that this is without a doubt the better way to play it. Plus, it's less than 20 quid for both the Switch and PS4 for a physical copy. If I owned both, one would be looking great on my shelf, and the other would be looking great on my large widescreen TV. Oh, and by the way, if you want to grab yourself a copy, there's a couple of affiliate links below. So yeah guys, that's Wild Guns The Complete History, a series that's so incredibly loved by all that actually put the time in, and perhaps that's why it's not more popular. In my eyes, it's insane that there are not more games in this series, or genre for that matter. For the most part, people always love playing them, and as we have seen here today, the team love to make them too. If you ever get the chance to grab yourself a copy of the original game, definitely get that. But for those that want the ultimate Wild Guns experience, go and get the remake. Hey there guys, thanks for checking out the video. I want to give a big special shout out to all of my patrons, but first, an extra big shout out to WonderShare, who sponsored this video. Like I said, there is a link below if you want to go check them out for all of your DVD creation and Blu-ray creation needs. And how could I not give the biggest shout out to Stop Skeletons from Fighting, or at least Derek from Stop Skeletons from Fighting, who provided his voice for this episode. Been a big fan of the guy's channel for the longest time, so please do go and check him out as well. Again, there'll be a link in the description. But anyway, back to those patrons with a big shout out going to that retro video gamer, Gary Pinkett, Mantis, Ryan Burford, Andrew Dalton, Jonathan Haywood, Tomek Grabowski, Christopher Turnbull, Brent Craft, Ben Jackson, Phil Lowlins, Mr. Vestek, Lefty, Intrigued Gaming, Abby Morris, Tim Labonte, Asobi Quang, DX, Tim Lund, Genovi, Hananas, Pixels.Limited, aka Samuel Victor, Red the Beard, Conrad Constantine, Pretendo64, Creamy Elephant, James Loveridge, Casey Garner, Blitz, Hedgie, Ben Hall, Savage Gaming Show, Gemma at Mr. T's shirt, Away, Monster Finger Games, the creators of Alien Scumbags, Mike H. Fell, Lucer Softail, Ye Old Hamburglar, Gregory Arden, Bewright, Ronnie Method, SSWB, Solux Captor, Jeremy Rodriguez, Nick Pollard, Bram Perez, Marcus King Emo Cut Tyndall, June, the Geeky Dad, Richard Carter, aka Fantastic Dizzy, Todd Paul Float G, the new admin over in the Discord channel, and of course, Petty Mew. If you want to get your name shouted out, get your name shown, come and see what I'm working on. And people, if you want to support the show, then do please go and check out my Patreon or check the affiliate links below to actually go and buy yourself Wild Guns or anything else from PlayAsia. It helps me buy more games to review and make videos like this. But anyway, go and check me out on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the other gum, you know the drill. Because this is now DJ Slope signing out, and hopefully I'll see you all next time.